Historians of Reddit, what are some of the funniest stories from history we need to be aware of? Abraham Lincoln had a dry sense of humor. He once answered a question about whether his legs were too long by saying, I have not given the matter much consideration, but on first blush I should judge they ought to be long enough to reach from his body to the ground. Regarding General McClellan, who was skilled at training soldiers but reluctant to send them into combat, Lincoln quipped, if General McClellan doesn't want to use his army, I'd like to borrow it. Then, this last one is disputed yet was reported in reputable newspapers in 1863, when a congressional delegation complained that General Grant drank too much whiskey. Lincoln reportedly replied that he would like to know what brand Grant drinks so he could send a case of it to each of his other generals. King Charles VI of France was prone to delusions, and at one point believed he was made of glass. He had his clothes specially reinforced so that he wouldn't break. At one point there were 3 popes and they all excommunicated each other. Australia's first gold medal at the Winter Olympics was in speed skating. The skater, Stephen Bradbury, was coming last until every single athlete in front of him fell over. The best part is that he was only in the finals because the exact same thing happened in the semi-finals. To this day, an incredibly unlikely victory is known as pulling a Bradbury in Australia. Edit. Staying at the back of the pack was an intentional move on Bradbury's part. George Bush Sr. vomited in Prime Minister of Japan. Kiichi Miyazawa's lap. One of my favorites is in 1956. For a bet and while drunk, a man named Tommy Fitzpatrick stole a small plane from New Jersey and then landed it perfectly on the narrow street in front of the bar he had been drinking at in Nick. Then, 2 years later, he did it again after someone didn't believe he had done it the first time. Here is an article about it. The story of USS William D. Porter and its crew. It's like Police Academy but with ships. Some of the mishaps: accidentally sending a torpedo towards a plane carrier that carries FDR going to Cairo and Tehran conference during World War II. During maneuver drilling, they accidentally dropped a depth charge which exploded and picked up by the whole fleet, which made them scramble thinking it was German U-boat. Full stop. Stalin kept trying to assassinate Josip Broz Tito. Tito sent this letter to Stalin: stop sending people to kill me. We've already captured 5 of them. One of them with a bomb and another with a rifle. If you don't stop sending killers, I'll send a very fast working one to Moscow and I certainly won't have to send another. Once Julius Caesar was kidnapped by pirates, who demanded a random of 20 talents. He laughed and told them that they did not know who they had captured, and suggested 50 talents as much more suitable sum. While he was a hostage, he acted like their commander rather than their prisoner. He would tell them to stop talking when he wanted to sleep, and read them his own poetry, calling them illiterate idiots when they weren't impressed enough. Once he was freed, he had all the pirates captured and crucified. Edit. Since somebody asked for proof, here's an article from Encyclopedia Britannica. It was in Corinth that a beating between Alexander the Great and Diogenes is supposed to have taken place. These stories may be apocryphal. The accounts of Plutarch and Diogenes Laertius recount that they exchanged only a few words, while Diogenes was relaxing in the morning sunlight. Alexander, thrilled to meet the famous philosopher, asked if there was any favor he might do for him. Diogenes replied, "Yes, stand out of my sunlight." Alexander then declared, "If I were not Alexander, then I should wish to be Diogenes. If I were not Diogenes, I would still wish to be Diogenes." Diogenes replied. In 1892, the Princess of Liechtenstein got so pissed at a countess criticizing her flower choices at a party that she challenged her to a topless, all-female sword duel. President John Quincy Adams tried to initiate trade with the mole people he believed lived under the crust of the earth. My brother studies ancient history, so I've heard a few good ones. In 455 BC, the ancient Greek playwright Aeschylus spent all his time outside after hearing a prophecy that he would be killed by a falling object. He later got killed by a turtle that an eagle had dropped on his head after mistaking it for a rock. Another funny one is the Roman Emperor Caligula had such a strong connection with his horse that he appointed him as a priest, and was planning to make him a senator before he got assassinated. Who ye wanting a phone? 1920. Yuan Shikai was defeated and Puyi was put as the symbolic head of China. Although he was confined to the imperial palace at all times and had basically no power. When he was about 14 years old, he discovers what a phone is and wants one installed in his palace. But the eunuchs are really hesitant. What if Puyi used his phone to build powerful contacts outside the palace? What if Puyi heard about this new ideology all the cool kids are doing? Communism? How would this affect the people of China? And the people in charge? What if Puyi posed a threat? They would have to raise the imperial palace and wipe out the imperial lineage once and for all. No way. Puyi will not get his phone. But the little cunt keeps persisting, demanding to get his phone, even threatening some people. Finally, they relent. Puyi will get his phone. He is overjoyed and demands he be left alone with his new weapon of information. He then spent all afternoon prank calling restaurants and famous authors. When he was president, Jimmy Carter was in a small boat by himself and was attacked by a giant swimming swamp rabbit, described later, somewhat unhelpfully, by his press secretary as, perhaps berserk. One of my favorite funny stories is that in 1977, Australian Formula 1 driver Alan Jones won the Austrian Grand Prix. No one expected him to win, so the organizers didn't have the Australian national anthem on hand to play at the ceremony after the race. Instead, some drunk rando started playing Happy Birthday on the trumpet. The race happened in August. Jones' birthday is in November. In ancient China, there was a board game called Liubo. The rules haven't survived to the modern day, but archaeologists have found the stone boards and playing pieces in tombs, and it's mentioned quite a bit in historical texts. Most notably, not one, but two separate imperial princes from different dynasties are recorded as having killed a relative by smashing them over the head with a Liubo board. During the Byzantine-Sasanian Wars in the early 6th century, Khosrow I of Persia destroyed Antioch and captured its civilians. However, rather than enslaving them or killing them, Khosrow brought them back to Persia and rebuilt them an almost exact replica of Antioch, down to the layout of the city and rooms in the houses. The citizens were freed and made into full Persian citizens. The city was named Way Antioch Khosrow's Better Antioch. The British government wanted to get rid of the cobras in India, so they started offering money for dead cobras. To take advantage of this, many people started breeding cobras to kill for the money, so they stopped buying dead cobras and they realized it was going on. All of the cobra breeders released the snakes and there ended up being even more cobras than there had been in the first place. In 1788, two portions of an Austrian army attacked each other by accident near the city of Karin-Sebs. 2 days later the Ottoman enemy showed up and took the city without a fight, as all that was left were dead and wounded Austrians.